To show you how to make a quick selection but yet refine some of the edges a little bit so things aren't so rough. Things don't look like they're just cut and pasted in. We want them to look like one thing fits in the next picture. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the quick selection tool, and I am just going to select the guy for the most part. So we want to get a general. Don't worry about the hairs. I'm going to show you how to fix that here in a minute. Alright, so we want to get a majority of this. Drag it down. Remember, if you get too much, like here, if you push down on the Alt, that plus goes to a minus, and then we can push that back in. So we'll push in a couple areas here, and we'll push out just a little bit. And the more you kind of go back and forth, the more Photoshop kind of understands what you're trying to select. It may not get it exact, but it'll get it close, and we'll worry about refining some of these areas here in a little bit too. So I could also zoom in, so if I do Alt and then scroll up on my mouse, it'll scroll me in a little bit, and then I can change my brush size a little bit. I change it by the bracket keys. I know some of you guys right click and find it, but the bracket keys is a pretty easy way of doing that also. So we'll pull this out. So I don't have to worry about it getting real exact, but we do want to kind of get as close as we can. Alright, so I'm going to zoom back out of this, and let's add that out just a little bit. Okay, now what you're going to do next is you're going to come up here to this button that says Refine Edges. We're going to click on that Refine Edges. Now, yours probably isn't going to have this gray background. It's probably going to be white. Okay, my guess is it's going to look like this. Alright, you can change this by clicking on this arrow. I like to see the overlay, which shows that kind of transparent red mask, so we can kind of see what's hit and what isn't. And then you just click outside. At this point in the video, when this refined edge box comes up, you need to make sure that the decontaminated colors box is checked. I have forgot to do this in the video, so you will need to make sure that you do it before you go any further. We want to click on the smart radius on this one, and you can change this smart radius just a little bit, not a lot, somewhere between 1 and 2. And then while this little brush tool is up here, if you click on it and go over it, it will kind of pick up and sense, okay, we need to pick up these hairs. Alright, and any other that are kind of some rough edges around the edges, so we'll just kind of go around the edge of his hand and see if it picks up any. Now, as you can see right in here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit and come over. It's kind of adding a little bit more of the red, and I can go back and change this to the white, and you can see I'm kind of losing it. I've erased too much, so sometimes it's good to switch back and forth here. So to get this back, if you click on this brush tool, go to Erase Refinements, okay, and then that goes back in and brings the hand back in. All I'm doing is clicking and dragging, and then that brings some of those edges in. And I'm going to go back through, and you can see now it's starting to pull back the outside a little bit, so I need to go back and go to my Refine Radius tool. So it's kind of a hit and miss here a little bit. Over here I erased out too much, so I'm going to go back into the Erase Refinement. Some other things you can do like this, I'll show you how to fix that in a minute too. We can go back in and put a mask in. That I took too much out. So you just got to kind of go back and forth until it gets what you can a little bit. Now, some other things you can do, since this is kind of a rough edge, we can take and we can smooth our edges a little bit. And see how that smooths that, and it's not so rough when we started out. So you don't want to smooth too much. You really don't want to go much past 5 or 6. Another thing you can do is feather it, and it kind of softens the edges too. You don't want to go too much on that either. somewhere in between 1 and 2 on that, so we're going to bring that back. Okay, and then we can still kind of go in and play with this refine tool. I'm still kind of taking some of this out, and I'll show you how you can clean that up. But the main thing is you can kind of go in with this hair, and it kind of picks up some things. Once you click the OK button, now you should have this refine or vector mask in here, and you want to make sure you're clicked on this, and you want to also make sure you're on black and white. Okay, that you're on the paintbrush in black and white when you click this. Now remember, this is like a mask, like we did the quick mask over here. So anything that is black is going to give us a mask, which means we don't want it to show up. So if I wanted to clean up these edges a little bit more, like right in here, I'm on black. If I go too far, like here, then I can go back to white, and I can go back in and put his shirt back in. Now this is another area where you can soften up maybe some edges. It looks like I kind of really softened this up too much. You can take your brush and take your opacity down a little bit, but maybe not as much, and then maybe paint that back in. So what we want to do is we kind of want a clean cut, but we don't want it so fuzzy that it doesn't look realistic and it looks like some of that was taken out. Like for example, this hand. So I'm going to really zoom in on this, on the hand and over here. And sometimes you just have to zoom in to get a better look. I'm going to take my brush size down, and I am painting out. Want some of these fingers, so I'm going back in and putting them back in and sharpening up this edge just a little bit. Okay, and again, if I go out too far, like I did here, so maybe I want to see where I'm at first and see where that hand is. Because it was blurry, it was hard for that quick selection to pick up. And then I can go back in with the black and then maybe see where that mask needs to be a little bit better. Okay, so we really want to clean up some of the edges, and the best way to do that is to really zoom in and get a better look, and adjust your brushes a little bit. And then like right in here, this armpit, we didn't get it out real well. Maybe we took out a little bit too much here, so I'm going to go back to the white and then pull that shirt in. So to get a good selection, you really need to kind of take your time and go back and forth and get it the best you can. Now again, I don't think it's bad to soften some of these edges because then it doesn't look as copied and pasted, but we don't want it so soft that we overdo it and then we can't see the edges. Then it just looks like a big blur.